This episode goes out to our patron, Robin. Having you in the community has been incredible every step of the way. Hi there, Garrett Robinson here. Welcome to the 24th episode of the Nightblade Epic Podcast Season 3. Hey listener, if you haven't already, right now is the perfect time to pre-order Tales of the Wanderer Volume 1, the latest book of Underrealm at underrealm.net/wander. This gorgeous 3-book volume contains the first 3 novels in the Tales of the Wanderer series. I got my proof copy in the mail this week and oh my god, it's so pretty. My favorite Underrealm cover we've ever done, the best map. Listen, I know you have to take what I say with a grain of salt. I wrote the thing. But I mean it, this thing is beautiful, and you're going to love it when it comes out on March 12th. Pre-orders are incredibly helpful to us as we get ready for the book launch. And if you pre-order a hardcover in the United States, it will even come to you signed. Pre-order your copy today at underrealm.net/wander. That's underrealm.net/wander. Next up, we're now up to our 5th episode of Quest published to Patreon. Patreon is a voluntary support site where you can chip in a little bit of cash each month to help support this show and keep me writing. All my patrons get to read my new books as I write them, and there are tons of other cool benefits depending on your level of support. Quest is a book I've been working on for over 16 years. Yes, that's right. 10 years before I even published the first book of Underrealm, this was the book of my heart. I've been living with it ever since, and I promise you, it is worth the wait. To read Quest right now, support me for $1 a month or more than $1 a month over at patreon.com/Garrett B. Robinson. That's patreon.com/Garrett B. Robinson. Okay, now it's time for today's episode. Today, you're getting Chapter 33 of Darkfire. When we left off, Lauren and Albern had come up with a desperate plan to escape the Shade Stronghold, but it meant leaving Jem and Jordell behind. Enjoy! Darkfire, Chapter 32. "We have little time," said Albern. "There is no other choice. We must flee the fortress." It was some time later, and the thin gray light of dawn seeped in under the door. Lauren hardly noticed. She sat against the wall, head bowed so far forwards that it hung between her knees. Her hair fell thin and scraggly, reminding her of Zane's when he had suffered from the Magestone sickness. Wordless, she nodded. "What about Jordell and Jem?" said Annis. "You cannot mean to leave them." "We do not know if they live," said Albern. Though he spoke sternly and without hesitation, Lauren could hear a thickness in his voice that she had never heard there before. "And I made Jordell a vow. I mean to fulfill it, as atonement for leading you upon this road." "You have nothing to atone for," said Lauren. "We have had little choice since the moment we set out from Strappa. I curse the moment we laid eyes upon this fortress. I would rather have walked back into the spears of the satyrs than this place." Albern's eyes filled with fresh pain, and he turned away from her. "Curse not the fortress, but Strappa itself, and the day you met me there. I am to blame, and no other, for the fortune that has befallen you." Lauren raised her head to look at him, not understanding. "You saved us in Strappa, Albern. Without you, the mystics would have taken us." "Without me, they would never have known you were there," said Albern, eyes cast downwards. "I was the one who told the mystics I had seen you. They had reached the town already, and put out word that they sought a party matching your description. After you came into my shop, I followed you back to your inn, and then sought out the mystics to tell them where you were." Lauren felt as if the ground had vanished beneath her. But you saved us. When the mystics ambushed us, you arrived to lead us to safety." "That was my plan. I never meant to let them have you, not for long. I would either save you from their clutches in the village itself, as I did, or ambush the mystics once they left Strappa with you in tow. I thought it was the only way you would choose to take the mountain pass, which I thought safer than the westerly road." Her confusion vanished, but only to be replaced by a rising fury. "And because you thought it would place more coin in your pockets," said Lauren. Her voice grew dangerously loud. "All along the road you pretended to befriend us, when in truth you thought only of Jordel's gold." Alburn shook his head. "That is not so. I swear it. How often did he offer me more coin, only to have me refuse him?" "A fine show," hissed Lauren. "Mayhap you thought to steal the rest once we were safely out of the mountains." "I vow to you on any oath you could ask that I thought the mountain pass would be safer," said Alburn. "How could I know this stronghold had been occupied in my absence? I thought we would face no danger greater than satyrs. I knew nothing of these shades or the lord who rules them. I promise you." "The promises of a liar mean nothing," said Lauren. She went to the secret door and leaned her arm against it, shaking as she tried to calm herself. It would be fitting, she thought, to open the door and cast him out, to let him be caught by the shades as Jordel had. He had brought this fate upon them. Let him reap what he had sown. But slowly, as her blood cooled and her fist stopped twitching before her eyes, she realized that that would do none of them any good. Jem and Jordel were gone, and would not be helped if she lost Alburn in the bargain. Despite what he had done, he was the only one of them who knew the mountains. If they managed to escape the stronghold, only Alburn could lead them the rest of the way to Northwood. But how could she trust him, now that she knew the truth of him? Lauren turned from the wall and looked at the bowyer, whose face was still cast down and shadowed from the torch's glow. Both Annis and Zane were looking at him as well, the girl and the wizard joined in a rare moment of unity by their anger. "If, as you say, you feel any remorse for leading us astray, then prove it," said Lauren. "We must escape this fortress, and I cannot do it alone. Help me save those of us who remain." "I will," said Alburn, looking up at her with pain in his eyes. "I swear it, even at the cost of my own life, for that would be a small payment." "Very well," said Lauren. "How shall we do it?" "I have thought on that," said Alburn. "To escape we shall need two things, horses and an open gate. If you can take care of the gate, I shall fetch our horses from the corral." "How?" said Lauren. "Guards are posted, and they will not let you simply walk in and take them." "Let me tend to that," said Alburn grimly. "I promise you they will not stand against me." "Even if I trust you, how shall I open the gate?" said Lauren. "Rarely in my life have I seen a gate at all, much less a guarded one, and I know nothing of their working." "There is a winch that opens it," said Alburn. "It will be in the guard tower, likely on the first floor. You will see a great wheel with a catch to hold it once it is raised." Lauren remembered when she and Jordel had visited the gate tower together in disguise. She had seen the wheel then, large, almost as tall as she was, and made with many spokes. "I saw it, but I do not know if I can open it myself. It was very large." "Fortress gates are cleverly made," said Alburn. "A single person may turn the wheel. Still, it may take you some time, and the guards will know something is amiss the moment you begin. So we must work in concert, you and I. The moment you hear commotion in the courtyard, which there surely will be once I make off with the horses, you must open the gate as quickly as you can. My distraction should give you time." "Fine," said Lauren. She looked from Alburn to Zane. "Then there is only one matter left to tend to." She went to the wizard and knelt before him. His eyes were clear as he looked back at her, clear and bright and free from madness. Lauren quailed at what she was about to do, but then she reminded herself that Jordell had believed Zane's remorse. If she could not trust Zane for herself, she could at least trust in Jordell. "I mean to free you from your bonds, Zane," said Lauren. "Tell me, can I trust you not to betray us when I do?" Zane nodded slowly, but Annis's head jerked up. "You mean to free him? Now? This plan seems dangerous enough already." Lauren did not take her eyes from Zane. "Jordell said he would not leave Zane behind. In his absence, I am bound to carry out his orders. And we cannot make good our escape if we must drag a man with us. I cannot lift him atop a horse as Jordell did." She reached out and seized Zane's ankles before drawing her hunting knife. The ropes parted easily before her blade, as did the ones at his wrists. She waited. He made no move to pull the gag away. After another moment's pause, she reached up and removed it herself. "If you mean to speak words of power, say them now," said Lauren. "I would rather your betrayal come before our escape than in the middle of it, where it would put us in the hands of the Shades." "I told you I would do you no harm, Lauren of the family Nelda." His voice croaked, but he cleared his throat and went on stronger. "I meant it. My magic is weak within me, and I doubt I shall be able to make more than sparks for a long time to come. But if I reach for those sparks, it will be only in your defense. And I will echo Albern's vow. If by my life or death I can see the two of you to safety, I will." "I shall hold you to that," said Lauren. Her mind drifted to the pockets of her cloak, where she still held the 2 packets of magestones. She suppressed a shiver. "You know I will not take your life, but if you should betray us again, with my last breath I will ensure you spend the rest of your days in the Great Rocks, under the knives of Shades." She stood and turned back to Albern. "As soon as the sun rises, we move." Darkfire, Chapter 33. Lauren thought long about keeping her black cloak, but daylight was almost upon them, and so it would be useless outside, and the black cloth would give her little help within the castle. So she cast it off, and donned instead the cloak of her shade uniform. She had stowed the helmet in their hiding place, and now she put it on as well. The guise would not withstand close scrutiny. Surely by now the guards would be on the lookout for strangers in disguise, but it might give her the half-second advantage she would need in a fight, or in an escape. Zane had wanted to come with Lauren, but she refused. He was still too weak to help, and she did not want him unleashing magic that might draw the guards' attention. Instead, Zane and Annis would wait until they heard the stronghold's alarms, and then leave the secret hallway to meet Albern and Lauren in front of the fortress gate. After looking to be sure the way was clear, she and Albern slipped from the secret chamber and into the fortress. Lauren had hoped Jordell and Jem might be brought to the jail cells just outside their hiding place, but they had no such luck. As much as it pained her, she knew it was her duty to get Annis, at least, out of the stronghold and to safety. But once they left, she meant to convince Zane and Mayup Albern to return and rescue the others. She would have tried it before escaping, but if they failed, Annis would sit wasting away within the stronghold's walls, and either die there or fall into her mother's clutches. They hoped to find the hallways empty, but the moment they entered the stronghold, they heard heavy footsteps coming down the hall towards them. They had prepared for this, however, and with hands on their hilts, they marched quickly down the hall in the other direction. The guards rounded the corner and saw them coming, but Lauren and Albern marched with such conviction that the Shades gave them no second glance. Both pairs passed each other in the hallway, and soon Lauren and Albern rounded the corner out of sight. "Carry on this way to the guardhouse while I make for the courtyard," said Albern. "But hurry. It shall not take me long, I think, to free our horses, and then we must ride with all haste." Lauren nodded, and he stepped outside. She half ran to the end of the hall where the gatehouse door waited, but she paused before opening it. She and Jordell had seen 2 guards when they came this way before. If they were still here, she planned to try again the ruse Jordell had played. Lauren would say she was there to replace one of them, and when one left, subdue the other. She drew a deep breath and stepped through the door. To her surprise, she found only one guard on duty. He sat near the wheel to open the gate, leaning back in a wooden chair. He shot to his feet when the door opened, but relaxed once he saw her. "I thought you might be the commander," said the man. "He has been making rounds ever since the spies escaped again." "In that case, I am surprised to see only one on guard here," said Lauren, looking around the room to make sure there was no one else about. It was empty. "Of course there are 2 of us," he scoffed. "My partner had to take a piss. She shall return in a moment. I told her it was a mistake, leaving post with command breathing down our necks, but I guess some things cannot wait." He snickered. "Then it is your good fortune, I suppose," said Lauren. "I am here to replace one of you. The commander has issued new orders. We are to stagger shifts to keep everyone more alert, and if the spies have learned our movements, they will be misled. Since your partner is missing, I suppose your shift has ended early." At once his eyes narrowed suspiciously, and Lauren knew she had made a mistake. "I have heard no such orders. What is the password, then, if you were to replace me?" Lauren cursed herself for a fool. Of course they would have set up a password. She rolled her eyes and stepped closer, letting her hand drift idly to the back of the chair opposite his, just a pace away. "Are you truly surprised they have not told everyone yet? Things are a mess since—" She seized the chair with both hands and swung it for his head. The man barely got an arm up in time, and he cried out as the wood cracked against his forearm. Lauren leaped forward, swinging again from above. This time she struck his helmet with a rattling clang, sending it flying to the floor. Still he did not fall. In desperation she dropped the chair, seized his cloak, and struck him. He fell back, slamming his head into one of the spokes of the wheel. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. "There is your password," she said, breathing heavily. She seized the spokes of the wheel, but then she stopped. Albern had told her to wait for the clamor of his escape before she turned it. What was taking him so long? A window looked out into the courtyard, giving her a clear view of the gate itself. The spikes at the bottom of the portcullis were sunk deep into the ground. 2 guards with spears sat near it, heads hanging down, sheltered from the falling rain by the wall. Mayhap she should test the gate before Albern stole the horses. Surely no one would notice if she moved the gate only a finger or 2. They might think it was just the chains settling. With both hands on the wheel and one eye firmly on the portcullis, Lauren tried giving the wheel a spin. It did not move. Her pulse thundered. She heaved and heaved, but the spokes would not budge. She looked desperately for the catch Albern had mentioned, which held the gate open but could be knocked out to close it again quickly. She found the mechanism and the catch just as he had described, but it was not in place. The gate should have opened easily. No matter how hard she pulled at the wheel, it would not turn. Her nerves turned to panic. Albern would escape with the horses at any moment. In frustration, she struck the wheel with her fist. It shuddered and spun slightly in the opposite direction. Lauren bit her tongue hard enough to bleed, and then seized the wheel and tried again. It turned easily, from right to left instead of left to right. But through the window she saw the gate fly up, not just a few fingers as she had intended, but almost a pace. The guards stood and seized their spears, shouting in alarm. After looking at the portcullis in confusion, they turned as one to look at the gatehouse. She froze in fear, but then she heard the shouts of more guards in the courtyard. Horses began to scream, and she heard the ring of blades clashing. Albern had made his move. Lauren hauled at the wheel again, pulling as hard and quickly as she could. It moved easily now, and the iron mechanism caught with each turn to keep the gate from falling down. The guards outside wavered, unsure of whether to help in the courtyard or stop Lauren from raising the gate farther. The wheel stopped turning. The gate had reached its full height. Lauren turned to make for the door which crashed open, and 2 men rushed in with drawn swords. Outside, the keep's bell sounded the alarm. Lauren took one look at the doorway, now blocked by 2 burly soldiers with bared steel, and turned to run up the stairs instead. They gave chase, shouting, but without armor Lauren moved much faster. She passed the middle landing, which was empty, and emerged atop the gate tower into open air. Rain soaked her at once. She threw the wooden hatch closed behind her and then turned the wooden lever to hold it fast. In a moment she heard pounding from below. Looking down into the courtyard, Lauren saw Albern atop his bay, with Midnight's reins in one hand and the other horses tied to the mare's saddle. They had run in circles to avoid the grasping hands of the guards, but now that the gate was open they made for it at a hard gallop. One whole side of the corral had been cast down, and the other horses were near stampeding at the sudden noise of the bell and the shouting guards. Beyond, the burned husks of the Yaren caravan still stood, little more than piles of ash and the broken remains of wheel housings. Lauren smiled grimly at that. The pounding at the hatch redoubled, and she heard the splinter of wood as the catch began to give. A narrow walkway, thankfully abandoned, connected the top of her gate tower to the other. Lauren ran along it, looking for some means of escape. But the hatch atop the next tower burst open, and guards surged forth. They saw her and charged with a battle cry. Lauren skidded to a halt on the wet stone. She could not go forwards, nor could she go back. In desperation she looked over the back of the walkway, but the courtyard lay some 8 paces below her. The front was the same, but then she saw the portcullis. Raised as it was, its iron grid was only 2 paces below the top of the wall. Just before the guards reached out to grasp her, Lauren vaulted over the front of the wall and caught the gate. She wore the leather gloves of a guard's uniform, but still the impact shot agony through her mangled hands. She had no time to think of that now. Swiftly she climbed down, one arm's length at a time, using the iron bars like a ladder. She reached the bottom just as Albern shot out from the gate atop the horses. "Albern!" He wheeled around to look up at her. "Jump!" he cried. The distance still seemed too great, but she had no choice. Lauren let herself fall. She came down hard on the paving stones of the entranceway, but thankfully her ankle did not twist beneath her. She rolled with the impact, crying out as pain lanced her ribs. She came up scrabbling and ran for the horses. Behind her, Yaren men and shades had gathered. They came pouring out after her, scarcely a few paces behind. Zane and Annis burst into view and ran for Albern. Lauren wanted to faint from relief. She and the others reached the horses almost at the same time. They vaulted into their saddles. With a cry and the kick of his heels, Albern spurred his bay out and across the bridge. The other horses followed, and together they rode away from the Shade stronghold, as the curses and cries of their pursuers faded away on the air. This has been a production of Legacy Books, written and narrated by Garrett Robinson. The music in this podcast was created by Will Musser. Check out his incredible work at willmusser.com. That's WILLMUSSER.com. Today's letter is R. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.